Alright, students, so like I said, we're going to go through a few examples now of half-life and how to work these out. Like I said, half-life, we read the definition. It's just the amount of time for half of the atoms of a radioactive element to decay. But now we're going to go through how this might look on a test or things like that. So watch the video. It will really help you with your worksheet and with the test if you understand how to do these problems, okay? So, this first example says there's an element with a half-life of 1 hour. We start off with 100 grams and wait 4 hours. How much of it remains? So let me highlight some of the key information here. That's our first step when working out with word problems. I know people really don't like word problems, but if we can figure out what the key information is, then we don't need all the words in between. So our first thing is that we need to know the half-life is 1 hour. So it takes 1 hour for half of the elements to decay. We're going to start off with 100 grams. That's what our starting is going to be. And then we're going to wait 4 hours. And then we need to figure out how much of it remains. So our 4 hours tells us how many half-lives we're going to have to do. Because if we have 1 hour and it goes and we wait for 4 hours long, then we know there's going to be 4 half-lives total. So I would kind of write that out, 4 half-lives. So I know that we're going to have to do something 4 times to figure out our half-lives. So how you work out these problems is you start with your 100 grams. Remember, that's our starting. So we're going to start with 100 grams, and we're going to divide by 2, because remember, half-life is the amount for half of it to decay. So when we take 100 and we divide by 2, we get 50 grams. So this is how you figure out for 1 half-life. That is what you do. So now we need to figure out for a second half-life, right? We're going to have to do this 4 times. So we did it once, we need to still do it 3 more times. So we're going to do 50 divided by 2 again. We're going to get 25 grams. Remember, if you have problems doing the math, please use a calculator. You don't need to do any of this in your head. So this is our second half-life. Okay, now we're going to do 25 grams divided by 2 again, and that's 12.5 grams. So this is our third half-life. So now this is going to be our fourth half-life. Grams divided by 2, and we're going to get 6.25 grams. So this is number 4. So this is your final answer. Alright, so not too tricky. If they said maybe this 4 was actually a 5, so then you'd have to do it 5 times. But there will be some questions like this on your homework and on your exam. Alright, let's look at the second example. The second example says that at 10 a.m. a researcher has 350 grams of an element. It has a half-life of 1.5 hours. How much of it remains at 1 p.m. that same day? So again, let's highlight our important information. So we have 10 a.m. is when we're starting, and this is our starting weight is 350 grams, and then it's going to have a half-life of 1.5 hours, and this is our ending time is 1 p.m. So our first step for this problem is to figure out how many half-lives we're going to have to go through. So again, this 1.5 hours, that is what our half-life length is. And we're going to start at 10 and we're going to go until 1. So how I would figure this out to start is I would say if we start at 10, how long is it until we do our first half-life? Okay, so how long do we go till? So we have to go 1.5 hours to have 1 half-life. So if we start at 10 and we go to 11:30, that's 1.5 hours, right? So that's 1 half-life. Okay, then let's do it again. So then we're going to go from 11:30 and we need to go for 1.5 hours again. So that's 11:30 to 12:30 is 1 hour. 12:30 to 1 is another hour and a half, right? So this is going to go until 1. Now we're lucky. This one is just our second half-life, and we already hit 1, which is what our ending time is. So this question is only 2 half-lives long. See, we only had to do it 2 times. So let's see, we're going to start off with 350, right, grams, and then we're going to do this and try to think in your head, what are we going to do? What did we do up in the first problem? What does half-life mean? Remember, half-life is the amount of time for half of it to decay. So we're going to take this 350 and we're going to divide it by 2, right? We need half of it to decay. So if we do 150 and we divide it by 2, we're going to get 175 grams. So this is how much is left at 11:30, but our question is asking us for at 1. So we have to do 175 grams, and then we're going to divide it by 2 again. remember, you can use your calculator on these if you're not really sure. So if we do 175 and we divide by 2, we get 87.5 grams. Alright, so that's how you do those problems. Alright, there also are going to be ones on your test that are going to be graphs or charts, and you're going to have to learn how to read them. Now, don't be too confused by the graphs or the charts. Again, we just have to learn how to read it, and then we'll be fine. So, this on the side on your y-axis is your amount of, this is strontium in your your atoms. We have, 100 grams of it to start off with. And then this is our time in years on the bottom. So this is going to be able to show us our half-life. So if we start off with 100 grams and we go to 50, we know that is 100 divided by 2 is 50, right? That's one half-life. So this shows us one half-life. They're also nice on these graphs. They put it in with dots, so it's really nice. So then that will be our first half-life. So this first question is saying, how long is one half-life? So if we look, we see from 100 to 50, that's about, if we go down, you see how that's 25 years. So this first half-life, or one half-life, is 25 years. Okay, this next is asking us for how much is remaining after 2 half-lives. So we go to our graph, we see if 25 is one half-life, then our next half-life will be at 50. And so if we look up here at 50 and we go to our side, we see that there's 25 grams left. Alright, so they'll ask you questions like this, or you're going to have to learn how to read a graph and do the problems. Alright, this is a chart, so we're also going to have to learn how to read a chart. So for this chart, it's nice and labeled. This is our number of half-lives, this is the time elapsed, and this is the amount of strontium present. So the first question is just asking us, how long is a half-life? So we can see from 0 to 1, that's one half-life, and we can see that it was from 0 years to 29 years. So this is just 29 years long. The next question asks us, how many years will it take to have 125 grams left? So we look at this amount of strontium present, and we have to find where it's going to be 1.25 grams. So if you look down at the bottom, this is 1.25 grams, and we need to figure out how many years it will take. So we go over to our amount of time gone, and it's 87 years. They could also ask you in this question, how many half-lives does it take to get 1.25 grams? And if it asks you for how many half-lives, you would put this number 3. Alright, so this one is saying at 116 years, how much strontium-90 is left. So if we look, if we take 7 years, which is our last half-life right here that we just been using. So we take 87 years, and we know that 29 years is our amount of half-life, so we add a 29 to this. You'll see that this is actually 116 years. So we know if it's 116 years, that's exactly at 4 half-lives. So at 4 half-lives is 116 years, so we need to figure out what amount is left. What would go under this amount of strontium present? So remember, we just divide by 2 every time. So we went to 1 half-life, we did 10 divided by 2, and we got 5. When we did our second half-life, we did 5 divided by 2, we got 2.5, so on. So now we have to take this, and we have to divide it by 2 to get our one at 116 years. So we'll do 1.25 grams, and we're going to divide it by 2. And I'm going to just use a calculator on this one. Like I said, if you're not sure what it is, you don't want to have to do it in your head, just pull out your phone, use that as a calculator. And so for this, we're going to get 0.625 grams is what's left. Alright, those are some practice problems for you guys. Use them to go through your worksheet. Use them to study for your test. They're going to be really similar problems to this on your test and on your worksheet. Please let me know if you have any questions. I know this is all new material, and so it might be kind of hard at first, but keep with it, and good luck.